Welcome to the 13th week of this year's In Times Like These recap. Now, let's get into this. Starting with Alan Russo, who didn't expect his plan to throw a wild party at Theodosius's palace to backfire. Vivian Jones walks in, suggesting that Alan show the town that he's sorrowful by creating a campaign against the use of illegal substances, which Isidore agrees with. As Alan sorrowfully walks out, Isidore tells Vivian that she has a bright future ahead of her, which she appreciates. Isidore is still unaware that Vivian is his younger half-sister, as she tells herself that she'll be after her father's position in the family business. Harley Drake approaches her client, Devante Torres, scolding him for blaming Alan for the tragedy that happened on his hotel. Devante reminds Harley that he could have done much worse to Alan, reminding her of the beating Alan received a couple of months prior, since he orchestrated the beating. To their surprise, Heidi Mitchell shows up, handing Devante legal papers from Jeremiah Dval, suing Devante and filing a restraining order against him. Quinlan Franklin enters Heidi Russo's office, explaining how spooked Zeke seems after hearing that Ronnie's life was taken from him in custody. Heidi isn't bothered, causing Quinlan to question if Heidi wants Adaku to go down or if she wants Zeke to go down in the process. Heidi answers that she does want Adaku to go down since it was her product that Zeke sold to Max, but Quinlan points out that Heidi wouldn't mind if Zeke were to lose his life in the process. Despite how much Quinlan attempts to make Heidi feel bad, she informs Quinlan that she won't, adding that she can't convince Ben to change her mind. Heidi goes on about how Giani won't be able to change her mind either since she's back in the estate and might just be closer to stopping him from divorcing her. Quinlan walks off as Heidi smirks. As Zeke Franklin walks around the high school, Nichelle Torres asks him why it seems like he thinks someone is after him. Zeke tries to brush it off, but when Nichelle mentions that she'd never seen him like that before, Zeke asks his ex why she's sending him mixed signals. Nichelle denies it, but Zeke points out that she claims to be over him, but approaches him asking what he's struggling with. Annoyed, she asks him if he's okay because of the press conference Finegan made about the town having a trank issue, wondering if he's afraid that he'll get caught. Zeke expresses how he's not afraid of that, but Nichelle points out that if she were in his position, then she would be losing her mind. He replies that she's not in his position. Before he walks off, he tells his ex that she's asking way too many questions, going on about how he still cares about her too much to drag her into his mess. As he walks off, Nichelle feels conflicted. Pacho Torres makes a call to his mother, Isabelle, warning her about getting close to the Russos, fearing that they could be using her and Ulisa to get a hold of Theodosius's palace. Then Isidore walks in. Isabelle begins to ask Isidore if he's trying to sabotage Theodosius's palace in order to take it away, which Isidore denies. This causes Isabelle to ask if Isidore will get Alan to stop trying to tear Theodosius's palace down. Once she makes this request, Alan enters the room, telling Isabelle how he won't step down. Alan tears into Isabelle, reminding her that Devante took Elvira's life and that she should be grateful that his family has treated her with kindness. Angered, Isidore tells Alan to stop. Then Isabelle walks off as Alan tells her to keep on walking and that he hopes Theodosius' palace burns to the ground. Just as Isidore scolds his son, Alan begins to remind his father that he needs Theodosius' palace to make up for his lost inheritance, telling Isidore how he can't have Isabelle get in the way of their plan to take Theodosius' palace and take it for their own. When Zeke arrives at Quinlan's apartment, she suggests that her younger brother change the deal and decide to go to prison to stay alive. Zeke isn't willing to do it, especially since Heidi won't use her resources to ensure his protection, telling his older sister that he's better off being a snitch for the police and try to keep himself alive as he gives them information. She reminds Zeke that he's going against powerful people, reminding him that he's only an untrained teenager. He points out that he's working with trained professionals, adamant that he won't be going to prison where he has nowhere to run. At Dval HVAC services, Shelly Dval tells her husband Jeremiah that she still doesn't understand why he pursued legal action against Devante. As soon as Jeremiah explains to his wife that he did so to protect their family, Devante walks in. Devante goes on to ask Jeremiah if he has any idea what he's doing. Jeremiah states that he does, which is protecting his family. Devante tells Jeremiah if this is his way of protecting his family, then he's sadly mistaken. Hearing this statement angers Jeremiah, telling Devante that he won't change his mind, blurting out that he won't intimidate him like he did with Quinlan. Just as Devante tries to tell Jeremiah that he doesn't know what he's talking about, Jeremiah tells Devante to save it, telling him how he doesn't want to see him until they meet in court. Devante tries to explain that this legal action could make him look bad in court. As soon as Jeremiah tells Devante that he shouldn't have taken Elvira's life, Devante leaves. Once Devante's gone, Shelly scolds Jeremiah for his temper, telling him that he might have placed Quinlan in danger. Jeremiah tells Shelly that if Devante knows what's good for him, then he'd leave Quinlan alone. At the high school, Yulisa Torres checks up on JJ Dorval, but he wonders when she last spoke with her father. She assures him that she hasn't been in contact. Then JJ shares his theory that her father will use her and Nichelle to destroy his family. Yulisa assures JJ that she would never help her father harm his family, especially after she put her faith and trust in Jesus alone. Still, JJ feels like Devante could trick her, which is when Nichelle approaches them, asking JJ if he's off his medication. JJ snaps at Nichelle, telling her not to make him seem crazy. Since Nichelle and Vanessa are rivals, JJ feels like she would have no problem helping her father destroy his family. Vanessa walks up to the group, then takes JJ away from Yulisa and Nichelle. As Yulisa scolds her older sister for her actions, JJ warns Vanessa to stay away from Nichelle for the sake of their family. Vanessa tells her younger brother that she'll do as she asks, but is concerned about his newfound delusions. Finegan Burke is in Harley's room, asking her why she seems to be in such a miserable mood. She answers that she's defending a miserable person who finds themselves in trouble. When Finegan questions if this client is Devante, Harley decides not to answer. Just as Finegan expresses how disappointed that he can't support his lover defending Devante, Harley reminds him that he can cheer for her while she fights to help him keep custody of his son Kiev. This is when Finegan states how different his childhood was from his son's, talking about how he was mistreated by both of his parents. He goes on to express that in spite of his dark childhood, he's thankful that Harley is in his life. Heidi enters Dval Mitchell's law office, asking if Owen Grant is still digging to find out why Yvette dropped the charges against Max. Dval tells Heidi how he and Wanda have that handled, telling Heidi that she can walk off. She goes on to ask Owen if he's not concerned. Annoyed, he asks Heidi what he should have to be concerned about. Heidi asks Dval if he noticed how close Owen seemed to have grown towards Wanda. She goes on to state that Dval and Wanda must have had a rough patch in their marriage when he discovered that Wanda knew that Elvira cheated on him with Devante the entire time, on top of the legal stress that Yvette brought on them. This makes Heidi suggest that Owen could have taken advantage of that. Annoyed, Dval asks Heidi what her point is. Heidi tells Dval that Owen could try to be Wanda's hero by figuring out what she supposedly has on them when they all know that the truth is that Yvette lied about what Max did to her, then walks off. In Ben Russo's office, Quinlan tells him that she could really use her help taking down Devante and Adaku, explaining how she and Pacho are attempting to turn the two against one another. Confused, Ben asks why he needs to be involved. She asks him to prove that Adaku is Kalu Danjuma's daughter. Ben questions why she can't do that on her own. Since she can't expose Adaku on the network she owns, she suggests that Ben hand it to a rival network, and Adaku won't be able to deny who she really is when it's all out in the open, believing that it would be the push that Adaku and Devante need to turn against one another. Ben wonders if she's asking him to do this for the greater good or to keep her criminal brother from biting the dust. Quinlan tells Ben that Zeke wouldn't be dealing if Adaku's organization didn't draw him in. As for Ben, he points out that Zeke would have still been dealing because he wanted fast cash. When she asks Ben whether he'll help or not, she receives a text from Giani, telling Ben to call her when he makes a decision, walking off. Jeremiah notices Shelly holding her pistol as she tells her husband that if Devante is going to unleash his wrath on them, then she'd like to be prepared, especially when she feels like Jeremiah pushed them. JJ enters the living room, asking his parents if something happened as he meets with them. Jeremiah and Shelly ask JJ to be honest about whether he's taking his meds or not. He tells them how Nichelle got to them, telling his parents about his delusion of Devante convincing her to hurt them, and that she's doing so by making JJ seem like he's lost his mind. Jeremiah and Shelly try to assure JJ that they don't think he's lost his mind, but that he needs to take his medication to help him make sense of everything. JJ tells his parents that he sees sense and that he knows Devante is a demon who wants to wipe out all of them. As they try to assure JJ that Devante won't hurt anyone in the family, JJ believes that Devante could succeed if they're not aware of the tricks that Devante will pull. Shelly shares a Bible verse to calm her son down, reminding JJ that he needs to submit to God and resist the devil, which will cause the devil to flee. Jeremiah informs Shelly that he'll get JJ's prescription filled up again. Once he leaves, Shelly suggests that JJ go to sleep, promising that she'll be by his side until Jeremiah comes back. As JJ sleeps, Shelly hears the doorbell ring, then sees Devante in front of her. Harley asks Finegan how he feels, then he expresses that he's ready to get it over with, not to lose custody of his son, and that he can't wait to show the world the amazing woman he gained out of this. Afterward, Terry walks into the courtroom with Udell. Udell questions Finegan about his infidelity, but when Harley cross-examines Finegan, he blames Terry for being unfaithful to her. When Terry is on the stand, Udell questions her about her home situation. Then Harley asks Terry about her relationship with Devante Torres. Giani arrives at Quinlan's apartment where she asks her lover if he's ending things with her. Since Zeke sold illegal substances to Max, almost ending Max's life, Giani admits that it has made things complicated between them, especially since Zeke hasn't faced charges. As soon as Quinlan informs Giani that Heidi made Zeke an informant, she doesn't reveal that Zeke is going against the Danjuma organization. But since Giani hasn't answered her question, she tells Giani that their relationship is over. He begins to ask how she's going to be protected from Adaku. Quinlan tells Giani how it's fine, telling Giani that the more she thinks about it, the more she doesn't think that their relationship would have made it. Giani tells Quinlan that she might have a point. Before he leaves, she suggests that he work things out with Heidi. When Giani tells Quinlan that he hopes she finds someone good, she thinks back to her time with Ben on Christmas Eve, then tells herself how she already had. When Owen visits Wanda, she asks him what he needs to speak with her about. He begins to ask Wanda how her headspace is since Devante will soon be going on trial for taking her best friend's life. She expresses guilt for not coming out earlier about what she knew of his affair with Elvira. Owen attempts to reassure Wanda, reminding her that she was only a teenager. Despite that, Wanda states that she knew better and decided to stay quiet. Since Wanda is speaking up now, Owen expresses how she's making up for it now, promising to be there for her as emotional support, which Wanda appreciates. Yvette walks in, asking Owen what he's doing at her house, feeling like he has no reason to be there since she dropped the charges against Max. Wanda doesn't like her daughter's attitude, but Owen walks off. Once he's gone, Wanda asks Yvette what's wrong with her. Yvette expresses concern that Owen will find out that she lied about Max. Even though Wanda tries to assure her daughter how that won't happen, Yvette feels like if Wanda keeps inviting him over, then he will figure it out. Shelly tells Devante that Jeremiah isn't home, then he asks her if she knows when he'll be back. This causes her to tell Devante that he doesn't need to know, reminding him of what Jeremiah told him the other day, but Devante refuses to leave. She points out that he wouldn't want to have a bad look, threatening to call the police. He goes on to ask Shelly to get Jeremiah to drop the lawsuit and restraining order against him and they can come to peace. Frustrated, Shelly tells Devante that she won't do such a thing, especially when he is a danger to her family, telling him that he needs to pay for his crimes. Devante tells Shelly that she's being bold, talking to someone she feels is a danger to her and her family. Once again, Shelly tells Devante that if he doesn't leave at once, then he'll be in more trouble with the law. As soon as Devante tells Shelly that she'll be making a big mistake causing trouble for him, Shelly pulls out a gun on him. JJ wakes up, finding out that Shelly is gone, beginning to freak out. Quickly, he runs out to find his mother pointing a gun at Devante. As soon as Shelly notices JJ outside, Devante charges at Shelly, forces the gun out of her hand, then shakes and screams at her. JJ hears the voices taunting him, telling JJ that Devante will take his mother's life. Suddenly, the gun goes off. Devante drops to the floor, and it's shown that JJ pulled the trigger. Can't get enough of the crazy world of In Times Like These? Then, treat yourself to a binge watch of In Times Like These. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. You're not ready for what's to come, but tune in anyway.